always talk about how aesthetics of a character are just as important as gameplay in a fighting game, since that draws us to a character initially and makes them iconic, and makes you want that gameplay to be good for them. And one design that a lot of people like is the bald fighter. Something about a fully smooth head adds to a character's vibe. You see a bald fighter and you think, wow, that must be a hardened warrior, or it fits whatever else they're trying to be. Regardless, I want to look at the bald characters in fighting games. Quite simply, if they have no hair on the top of their head, they're eligible. I guess it can be on the sides though, that is still considered bald. And then there's also the shaved head versus naturally bald debate from SpongeBob, but I'm just giving it the old vision test. If I see no hair, it can be here. Otherwise, only restriction is one character per series of origin. Now, let's shine the top 10 bald fighting game characters. Number 10, Earthquake from Samurai Showdown. Earthquake covers a lot of ground, both in the sense that he's over 9 feet tall and 1,380 pounds, and in terms of fighting game tropes. He's a giant guy, fat character, attacks with a chain, is classified as a ninja, uses his butt, uses fire, and uses gases of the flatulent variety. I could put him on a list about each one of those topics, well, at least the ones I haven't already covered. And of course, he covers the trope of bald guy. I wasn't even sure if he was human due to his impossible size, sharp teeth, and markings on his face, but he's indeed a person from Texas, so the markings must just be paint, and the teeth, I guess, are for style. They make him look evil, which I wouldn't say he is. He's more of a chaotic neutral. He's in it for himself, but he doesn't have any aspirations to do evil things. Sure, he'll be brutal in a fight and have fun with that, but it's usually a means to an end, like getting treasure. He's definitely not a good guy, but he'll leave you alone if you're not in his way. He doesn't even fight dirty, really, outside of the literal dirty fighting with the fart attacks. He's just much bigger than you, so he overpowers you in that way. As for his baldness in his moveset, he doesn't overtly do anything with his head, but it kinda comes into play when he shows off his tumbling skills, where he rolls into a ball, so no hair is probably better for his aerodynamics. Overall, Samurai Showdown is a pretty bald-heavy franchise. Wanfu, Seeger, Kursorigato, Ganon, but he technically has a few hairs on top of his head. But Earthquake ultimately takes the spot for the franchise, since he makes a big impact both in terms of influence and physically when he's barreling towards you. Number 9, Zack from Dead or Alive. Zack had a full head of hair in the first game and had it shaved into a pattern for the second game on default, but for the third game and beyond, his head was clean shaven in almost all of his costumes. There was usually one costume in each of these games with his green dyed hair, but for the most part, he was rocking bald in these costumes. If you had any doubts about that on the costumes where a hat covers his head, don't worry. The headwear in these games fall off very easily if a character is hit a certain way. Hats basically come off with a light slap. Good luck ending your match with Tina still having her cowboy hat on if you don't play perfectly. The point is, he's bald under the hat. What made Zack's baldness very memorable to me is they sometimes do a bit where he has a wig on for an outfit and it falls off. Very simple, I guess I'm easily amused. The notable in-game costume that does this is the clown outfit, where the wig is susceptible to being knocked off like the hat. So you get the gag where his big clown hair that completes the outfit is now missing and he just looks silly. How can he wear this outfit without the wig? Ruined. Now the alien costume, that needs no hair. The other time I remember them doing this bit was in the second Dead or Alive beach volleyball game, where he has his disco getup on, and when his island is exploding at the end of the game, he's rescued by some UFO beam that pops off his wig, and thus it became a recurring gag to me, even though it only happened like 2 times. And it's not even the most memorable thing about him. I would say that's his alien costume, or just his moveset in general. I really like those fast consecutive low kicks. That's honestly one of the most fun Muay Thai attacks in fighting games for me. Look at him go. Where did I rank Zack on that Muay Thai list I did? Probably not high enough. Hopefully this celebration of his lack of hair makes up for that. Number 8, Chang from the King of Fighters. Chang is a workhorse in the King of Fighters games. He has a solid record of appearing in all of them before the devs just kinda stopped using him. And because he was in the series so much, his big bald head is very memorable. He's a large man with a polarizing hairstyle, as in fully bald on the top, but the beard is huge, as is he, and his weapon being a giant metal ball. This is supposed to be the ball and chain from prison to prevent him from escaping, but his power is so immense, he just uses it as a big swinging weapon. So to the prison guards that chained him like that, "No, you fools, you just made him stronger!" He even manages to escape from prison, but was caught by resident good but tough guy Kim Kap-Wan. Kim set up a rehabilitation program for criminals where he thinks he can use their skills towards delivering justice, which is why Chang's always entering tournaments against his will. He just hopes that he can either make a run for it or convince Kim that he's changed so he can go free. And with the underlying wackiness of this setup, anything with Chang tends to be ultimately goofy, whether it's him and his cohort Choi, who's in the same predicament failing to escape, or having to play nice with Kim, or just being tormented by Kim's training regimen. Even the whole setup is goofy, where Kim finds an escaped criminal, and instead of returning him to prison, he was like, "You, fine chap, you seem like you're ready to be out in society with me." I would say that as a contrast, Chang is no joke in battle, which is true, but even so, he still has a very funny victory dance, and a move where he just sneezes on the opponent to do damage. Even his biggest damage move is more or less a swan dive. Still, pain is pain, and Chang is very good at that. His moves are just him being bigger than you and him moving forward. No grace, elegance, or discipline outside of an occasional taekwondo move that Kim taught him, just raw big guy energy. And the iron ball covers everything else, where he uses it as a very heavy item to slam and rotate around himself. And for my Capcom vs SNK 2 fans out there, his cohort Choi was added to his moveset as a puppet character in that game to create the unique big guy with delayed tiny guy moveset. Cover that duo in full on my Puppet Fighters list. And for a move that utilizes his baldness, his throw is a headbutt, where in the second between the windup and the hit, it shines to indicate that this will be the tool of your demise. Also, it makes a fun shing sound effect. It's crazy to think how Chang was in every mainline King of Fighters game from the beginning in '94 to 2003, but then they just dropped him. He might have been crude, but he was a staple. After 2003, when we got the King of Fighters 11 through 15, he was only in 14 of that bunch, and I never got why he was the long-standing character left off all of a sudden. He was funny. We like funny. I can't guess when Chang will be back, but if a game ever releases him as DLC, just consider that as paying his bail. Number 7, Nappa in Dragon Ball Fighters. Okay, this pick might need some explaining, since for an entry on a fighter from Dragon Ball games, Krillin seems like the no-brainer pick of the bald guys, and I agree with that on principle. If this specifically took the series into play, Krillin's the man. His shaved head was the first topic of discussion when he met Goku. It acted as a stand-in for the moon one time. Those guys slipped off it in the BoJack movie tournament, and they like doing jokes about it having a nice shine. But with this being a list about fighting games, personally, I've always found Nappa to have some of the coolest movesets in the fighting games. Nappa was ultimately a henchman, but he was a strong, reckless guy who made you scared of guys even stronger than him. Nappa slaughtering half the Dragon team was no joke in the series, even though he was eventually outranked in power. And in the fighting games, they tended to get weirdly creative with him. Despite him being the big muscle, fighting games make him pretty agile. Not the most agile, he's still kinda slow. But let's go to the main fighting game I tend to cover for the series on these lists, Dragon Ball Fighters. With Nappa doing so much to kill off the Dragon team, he has some great looking attacks based on that onslaught. The move he used to break off Tien's arm is a great but slow overhead. Blazing Storm, which he used to cut off the other heroes from intervening at one point, is a nice projectile with solid range. The elbow slam on Piccolo's head is a powerful move that armors through physical hits. Deluxe Bomber is a dive kick without the kick. Giant Storm is the 2 fingers of doom that can level a city, and break cannon is his big beam super where he spits up on you. But of course, I saved the coolest part of his moveset for last, the Cybermen. He grows them as disposable plant people henchmen that fight with feral moves, acid, and they latch onto you to explode at the end. In fighters, he has 3 variations of them, with the green ones only doing physical moves, the blue ones having acid spit and less physical moves, and the yellow ones performing a pattern of moves that you can set. And of course, before they expire, they will try to latch onto you and explode for combo setups. He was already formidable on his own in this game, but now they gave him little buddies to attack you while he's trying to break your arms at the same time. It adds extra annoyance to Nappa, and I love it. You can even plant multiple at the same time, so when one dies, another one just pops out. Overall, I could just do a list on bald Dragon Ball characters at some point if we want to figure out the best of the baldies in the series: Krillin, Tenshinhan, Roshi, Nappa, GT Mr. Satan, but for this topic, the power of Nappa and his Cybermen was just too alluring.
Damn you!
Number 6, Quan Chi for Mortal Kombat. While Kano was bald before Quan Chi premiered in the franchise, Quan Chi feels like the more prolific bald character in the series. And not gonna lie, I think it's because of all those memes people like to make with Mortal Kombat 4 Quan Chi on the side of the arcade cabinet. Quan Chi is such a delightfully campy character, I can't help but find him amusing. He's all business on the battlefield, being a necromancer who fights by raising the dead or just using spare skulls he has lying around, along with mind control to hold you still, and little ground blasts that can be unblockable with enough meter, and that always felt like a trolly move with how he just points to the ground to do them. He's like, oop, got your toes, got them again, got them again. He also has a teleport where he just stomps on you. For a magic guy who isn't built to be a physical fighter, he surprisingly has a lot of brute force attacks. Don't forget, he's the guy with the fatality where he beats you to death with your own leg, and he won't stop until you select something from the menu after the match is done.
Fatality.
His first game appearance was in the Sub-Zero spin-off game, where those cutscenes with him pulling the strings to have Sub-Zero do his bidding were so fun. His actor Rich DeVizio was chewing up the scenery with those faces. DeVizio portrayed Kano in the first and third game, and Baraka in the second, and considering a big reason Kano went with the shaved head look in the third game was because DeVizio just looked like that now, I could see Quan Chi going with the shaved head look solely so DeVizio could continue getting roles in the series, and it's well deserved. He embodies the vibe of the series so well.
Shao Kahn is nothing but a peasant ruler of a long-dead realm. Shinnok is the destroyer of all realms, including Khan's outworld.
DeVizio returned to voice Quan Chi in Mortal Kombat 4, and the campiness continued for him in that game. Quan Chi was the master of appearing out of nowhere to proclaim he was evil and such in all the arcade mode endings. I love the Scorpion ending where Sub-Zero is like, "You got revenge on the wrong guy, my brother never killed you," and then Quan Chi walks out like, "He's right, it was me. I have no reason to tell you now, but yeah." And then Scorpion locks him in hell, leading to the best no of the series. The rebooted timeline still kept his campiness, even if it was a bit less front and center now. As mentioned, his moves were to be taken seriously with a bit of trolliness to them, but Mortal Kombat 2011 had the best gibberish noises for Quan Chi during battle. Him saying "Wule" was a big meme in the community for a while. Big shoutouts to his voice actor at the time, Ronald M. Banks. He was a standout voiceover performance in the 3 games that Quan Chi was in for this era. Mortal Kombat X took Quan Chi's story a bit more seriously with his power withering now, but he still has one of the best mirror match intros in that game where he tells the other Quan Chi that he was his only friend.
We mustn't fight. I'm afraid we must. You were my only friend.
So Quan Chi, he's one of the smartest and deadliest fighters in the whole series, but sometimes he's just too unintentionally funny for his own good.
Quan Chi wins.
Number 5. Tung Fu Ru from Fatal Fury. Tung is the elder master of the Fatal Fury series. He's the one who trained the father of the protagonist Terry Bogard, and then Terry himself after his father was killed, and he trained the main villain Geese Howard before he went all evil and stuff. And he trained Cheng, and I like Cheng. He's in the half of Fatal Fury characters that seem to have been forgotten by time, so I hope to get to talk about him someday. Get on that forgotten characters of Fatal Fury list, me. Anyway, the point is, Tung has been fighting and teaching for so long, he's elderly, so it's pretty reasonable to expect him to be bald, but it's all in the presentation here. They highlight how bald he is with the shine of his head. If you let his idle pose play the whole way through while standing or crouching, his head will do a little shine to remind you, yup, he's bald. I think he also tries to undo a wedgie in that same idle pose. He also has a taunt where he shines his head with a towel, and one of his versus screen pics shows that head is gleaming. I'm not sure if the devs just have a fondness for how perfectly bald he is, or if it's because he was inspired by Roshi from Dragon Ball who has an occasional head shine, or an even deeper reference of an elder master in media. But the point is, his character is not complete without the occasional shine. Tung in general has some of the most intriguing powers in the series. On default, he just releases a bit of ki from his hands when he pokes to add an extra bang for his buck on his normal moves. But even further into his ki mastery is when he pumps ki into his muscles to bulk up specifically for that attack, and only in the area where he's concentrating it. He can bulk up his arm or puff out his chest to fire ki out of his mouth. Also, he looks really angry when he does it. What pissed you off, man? His biggest attack is doing a lariat while bulking up to max size. He rips his entire shirt off while doing this, but then it reforms when the attack is over with some sort of inexplicable magic. How does he unrip his clothing? Even in the other bulk up attacks, they just reverse the animation to put any ripped clothes back to how they were. The rest of his attacks tend to go for rapid strikes to do those Master of 100 technique style moves, showing his resolve. Even in his win pose where he straight up dies by his soul trying to leave his body, he forces it back to him since he's not going yet, which is more for comedy, but I see it as a sign of strength where he can say, "Not today, death." I thought he must have been in his late 80s to 100 with that gag and appearance, but he's only 72 in the Fatal Fury games, 69 in the first game, so he could potentially have a lot of time left. I feel he looks at least 10 years older than he actually is, but I guess age, appearance, and head shine don't matter if he can kick ass the way he always has. Number 4. Voldo from Soul Calibur. I tend to not notice Voldo is bald, not because he hides it well, it's out there in many of his costumes, but he just has so much going on, the baldness is the least of our concerns. Like, yeah, he's bald, great, but did you notice he's wearing bondage and doing impossible stretches to fight? How do you even come up with a character like Voldo? He's something unique to Soul Calibur. He has his mouth and eyes bound, straps all over the place, and he fights with backbends, crawling on the ground, and turning into donuts, all while equipped with his metal claws. The claws technically do all the damage, but he's clearly hitting you with raw parts of his body, including the butt and crotch, so I don't know what this man is made of, but it's something malleable. To go with the topic, his dome can definitely do some damage, since there are some attacks that use it. The specific move I remember is his guard impact, which is a universal counter move, where he does it with his head. You just hit him on the bald head, and he says no. Once again though, he turns into a wheel and rolls around while pelvic thrusting, so anything he does with his bald head pales in comparison to his main fighting style. As for why he's bald, well, he gained his unusual fighting style by staying locked in the money pit of his boss to make sure no one steals it, even after his boss's death, and the extreme isolation caused him to lose his sight and speech, leading to his loose fighting style where he feels and listens to the environment and then reacts with flexibility. So the lack of sun or outside nutrients that led to his other conditions might have caused his hair to fall out too, but regardless of how he got to where he is now, we can all agree that Voldo truly is one of the most unique fighting game characters ever, who also happens to be bald.
Excellent.
Number 3, Heihachi from Tekken. Ironically, even though Heihachi is the most prolific bald guy in the series, he might be more well known for his hair. Those zigzag patterns of hair that point up on what he has left are synonymous with the Tekken brand. Go back to the first Tekken and you will never say it looks ridiculous in the modern games again after seeing what they did with it there. Ever since his introduction, he's been bald with that hairstyle, with the only change being that it went from black to gray after the time skip. I'm not sure if he styles it that way, or if it just sticks up like that naturally since he's the master of the electric wind god fist, so the electric part of that just keeps it standing tall. Heihachi was treated as a serious villain most of the way through the series, being the guy that threw his son off a cliff to teach him toughness, leading to Kazuya being evil, but that was also partially the devil gene and his own ambitions, and then Heihachi switched off and on from being a lesser evil or just the regular evil. But there was a period in the game's life when Heihachi's plotline was more or less a joke, at least with the arcade mode endings. The game that's actually relevant to this topic is the Tekken Tag Tournament 2 plot. It was a side game that was non-canon, and for whatever reason, they decided to give us young Heihachi as the default in that game, who still has the hair spikes but no baldness. It was a non-canon game, so they might as well have some fun with stuff they can't normally do. Heihachi is probably doing this just to get his strength back from his youthful days, but I could also see him not wanting to be bald anymore. It's a vanity project. In his arcade mode ending, we see he's been taking an experimental youth serum, but if he takes too much, it turns him into a bear. Well, that's silly. Now he really doesn't need to worry about being bald though. And even more relevant to the topic of this list, in Dr. Boskonovich's ending, he's doing a research study on hereditary baldness in the Mishima family, looking at Heihachi, his father Jinpachi, and Heihachi's estranged son Lars, to come to the conclusion there's no way Lars can avoid the baldness in this bloodline. He must be wearing a secret toupee, and it's revealed, he might be. There's a heavy implication. You gotta love the absolute nonsense they can put in these games since there was no story implication here. So Heihachi, the man has a massive fighting game legacy, much of which I've covered in other videos, but today, none of that matters and it's all about the top of his head.
You win.
Number 2, Sagat from Street Fighter. Fun fact, Sagat is one of my favorite Street Fighter characters of all time. He'd be in my top 10 for the series. I love how imposing he is, but he's also a nice guy who got to be a bad guy while not actually being a bad guy. He was the final boss in the first game, but after his loss to Ryu that scarred his chest, he wanted revenge in some way, so he joined the villains Shadaloo to be the sub-boss of the second game, and then realized he was being manipulated by rage, so he went off to help the children in his village. He's basically retired now, but he shows up in almost every game eventually because he's Sagat. Capcom loves nostalgia baiting with him, though I'm always good with him returning. I mentioned that I loved him being so imposing, and all of his visual traits make that work so well. He's got the height, scar, eye patch, and of course, the baldness. The shiny head means there's no hair to get in the way from him looking down on us. No matter how much new clothing he gets, the clean head stays uncovered, except that time he was a swimmer and probably a few other costumes I'm forgetting about. But the point is, all of his default costumes and his immediate alternate costumes have the bald head right there staring at us. And shoutouts to that one time in the American Street Fighter cartoon where Sagat sarcastically offered a hostage cornflakes.
Show the boy back to his old room. There he can rest and maybe have a snack. You like some cornflakes?
Also, in the Alpha series, he just brings another dude to the fight in his intro to immediately throw him away to show his threat, and he reps the tiger to nail in that ferocity, which you can't miss because he says tiger every time he gets a chance.
Tiger! Tiger! Tiger!
It's a Muay Thai based moveset with a Shoryuken-like uppercut and a lunging kick forward, but it's not a Shoto style moveset, and it's a bit slower in exchange for his longer limbs, also projectiles in high and low variation. And no matter what is going on, it feels like his tiger uppercut goes through anything. Regardless of which version of Sagat you're getting, that tiger energy will always remind you why he's the king, and that head is perfectly fit for his figurative crown. For number 1, I'm going with a character where being bald is a feature part of his design. It was even in his name at one point. Number 1, Faust from Guilty Gear. I feel I talk about Faust a lot on this channel, so congrats on making another list appearance. A part of the Guilty Gear franchise that feels like it's forgotten at this point is the very first game. It's not as good as what followed it in the series, but I like some of the stuff unique to the game. In this case, Dr. Baldhead. How could he not get number 1 with that name? This was Faust initially, at least in terms of body, since his mind was lost at this point. Dr. Baldhead was a crazed doctor who fights with a giant scalpel, and is convinced he has to kill people with surgery that cuts and nothing more. Before the madness, he was a nice doctor, did what you'd expect. Look at this art of him with a patient. He just looks like a normal guy when his glasses aren't glared and his tongue isn't out. But when a patient died during surgery, he blamed himself and ended up in his malicious state. I'm not sure where he got the giant scalpel though, but I'll assume the hospital. That being said, where did the hospital get the giant scalpel? For those who primarily know his later iterations, Baldhead has some familiar moves in this game, mainly getting on top of his scalpel, spinning like a madman, and doing the stretchy head thing, but otherwise, he's mainly doing the slashy in his first appearance. He's not complete yet. Also, the name Baldhead doesn't appear to be a code name, they just refer to him as that even when he was the benevolent doctor, so either he lives with a very coincidental name, or someone provided a nickname and never told us. The other thing I really like about his work in the first game is he seems to have left a major impression on the character May, whose bio states that she hates bald people, likely because of him, and when she beats him, she says, "Ha ha 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 ha, baldy." This is low-key one of the funniest win quotes in fighting games with or without context. Also, just the blanket statement of her hating bald people do to him. Like, does your average bald guy see this and he's like, what did I do? When he snapped back to his normal state, he was expectedly horrified at what he had done, and felt the only way he could make up for it was to go around the world healing people with his medical skills. However, he couldn't show his face anymore, so he covered it, but with a paper bag because he's goofy. No more evil era of Baldhead, it's now the wacky era of his new name, Faust. He amps up the cartoon physics so much here, retaining what he had in the first game, but now he has so much more wacky stuff. He's able to turn his scalpel into other objects, can summon doors to teleport, has a random item toss, check out my video on that character archetype to see everything he can truly pull out, and he has an infinite number of bombs stored in the bag on his head. And the way he throws the bomb makes it look like he can decapitate and regenerate his head, when really, he just ducks into his suit when reloading a new bag and bomb. I could be silly and say, how do we know he's even bald under there if he's so good at hiding his face? Or, is that even Baldhead, or could it be a body double? But he has a taunt where he takes off the bag, and his head is obscured by the shine of his baldness. I don't know if he just needs to air his head out here, or if he's trying to make a statement, but there it is, bald. Finally, in Guilty Gear Strive, the evil Baldhead persona was trying to reclaim the body, so Faust was now withered and creepy since he was fighting off the evil. Wasn't too much of a fan of this redesign, but at least they explained why he was creepy and he was still trying to help people while being goofy. I just miss pure goofy Faust. But if there's one thing all these forms have in common, it's the baldness. So for showing it to us, using it in his name, and making people scared of it, Faust is the #1 bald character in fighting games. Now, what did you think? Were all these characters good at not having hair, or are there a few other characters who also lack hair but have more flair? And who are some of your favorite bald fighting game characters, whether I discussed them or not? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.